The story begins with a scene of a house where a couple is arguing loudly. Their daughter, disturbed by the noise, wakes up. However, something strange happens to her. She begins to move unusually, as if she's having a seizure. She steps out of her room and we see her ears twitching, resembling the movements of an animal or bird, as if she's hearing something. She then heads toward the forest. The scene shifts to a family featuring a teenage girl named Gretchen, her father, Louis, her stepmother, Beth, and her mute stepsister, Alma, are traveling to a resort town where they plan to stay. Upon arriving at the resort, they meet the owner, Herr König, who stares at Gretchen intently. We also observe König flirting with Beth, which upsets Louis. The family proceeds to settle into the resort. Later, Gretchen is in the bathroom, listening to old voice messages from her mother. Beth interrupts, urging her to hurry to take care of Alma. While Gretchen leaves the bathroom, we notice she deeply misses her mother and wishes to save enough money to return to her old home. König tells Louis he has been looking for someone like Gretchen and offers her a well-paying job. Initially hesitant, but Gretchen accepts the offer, eager to earn money. She begins working as a receptionist. During her first day, a guest at the hotel suddenly starts vomiting. Later, Gretchen returns home and starts singing, only to notice Alma watching her. Suddenly, Alma begins shaking strangely, just like the girl in the opening scene. Alarmed, Gretchen rushes to her sister to help. The same events are repeated, as though Gretchen is trapped in a loop. She repeatedly approaches Alma, and when she finally touches her, Alma unexpectedly scratches her face, causing Gretchen to fall back. Deep scratches appear on her cheeks, which is quite strange. Hearing the commotion, their parents arrive, assuming Gretchen must have done something wrong. The scene shifts to Gretchen at work, where her co-worker Trixie asks about the scratches. Gretchen explains that Alma, her father's daughter, caused them. Trixie remarks that Alma is technically her sister, but Gretchen bluntly responds that she doesn't consider her a sister. After Trixie's shift ends, she leaves, and Gretchen remains alone. During this time, a girl named Ed arrives to rent a room. She asks for Gretchen's name and is handed a room key. Simultaneously, another hotel guest starts vomiting and behaves oddly before retreating to her room, a recurring incident throughout the film. As time passes, Gretchen gets ready to head home, but receives a call saying König is coming to pick her up. Disliking König's unsettling gaze, she quickly leaves on her bicycle. Later, König arrives and, not finding Gretchen, becomes disappointed and plays the flute he carries. Meanwhile, Gretchen, on her way home, notices another shadow moving beside her own. Turning around, she sees a hooded woman attempting to attack her. Fleeing, Gretchen reaches a hospital, only to find the gate locked. Panicked, she shouts for it to be opened as the hooded woman approaches. Just as the woman nears, the gate opens, and Gretchen rushes inside, accidentally hitting a glass panel and injuring her head. Bleeding, she notices the hooded woman still standing nearby. However, someone else arrives, causing the woman to retreat. It becomes evident that this mysterious woman is hazardous. After Gretchen receives treatment for her injuries, a police officer questions her about the incident. She recounts everything, but the officer dismisses it as a prank, suggesting the woman didn't harm her, and the head injury resulted from the glass. Realizing the police won't help, Gretchen shares her ordeal with her father, who is preoccupied with Alma, who has suffered another seizure. This angers and saddens Gretchen, as her father prioritizes Alma over her. A doctor later explains that Alma's seizures are likely due to childhood epilepsy. The scene shifts, showing Gretchen being blamed for Alma's condition, as her parents believe the loud music Gretchen plays causes the seizures. While working, Gretchen is approached by Henry, a detective investigating the previous night's events. She refuses to share anything with him. Meanwhile, Ed reappears, and Gretchen begins to feel a connection with her. Impulsively, Gretchen takes all the money she has and flees with Ed. As they drive away, they experience a strange loop, re-encountering the hooded woman. In an attempt to avoid her, their car crashes, injuring both. The hooded woman tries to attack them, but before she can, someone arrives, and Gretchen wakes up in the hospital with König sitting beside her. König sternly advises her not to act recklessly again, his words suggesting he might be behind everything. Shortly afterwards, Louis arrives, still more concerned about Alma than Gretchen. When Gretchen tries to explain her fear of the hooded woman, Louis scolds her, dismissing her concerns. Meanwhile, Ed, who is also injured, is at the hospital. Later, Henry visits Gretchen and reveals that he saved her from the hooded woman the previous night. Gretchen asks why he hasn't told anyone, as everyone thinks she's crazy. Henry explains he needs her help to capture the hooded woman, who is a wanted murderer. Simultaneously, the narrative reveals that Alma's seizures and the strange events around her might be linked to the hooded woman. Henry shares the story of a man who encountered a blood-soaked woman near a cabin, whose hypnotic voice lured him into the woods, leaving his wife to die in a tragic accident. Gretchen remembers seeing a similarly vomiting woman the night she met Ed. The hooded woman's presence and her eerie abilities begin to connect with other mysterious deaths in the area. In a pivotal turn, the hooded woman confronts Trixie, who screams for help. Henry finds the woman inserting a strange, slimy substance into Trixie. Before he can act, Gretchen also arrives, witnessing Trixie's demise. Henry shoots at the hooded woman, but she escapes into the forest with Henry pursuing her, only to return empty-handed. The story deepens as the hooded woman's otherworldly powers and her connection to the repeating loops are revealed. Henry observes that Trixie, like others before her, was strangled to death. The scene shifts to Gretchen stepping out of her room. She notices König with Alma. König takes out his flute, but doesn't begin playing it. Gretchen's father and stepmother are also present. Gretchen argues with her father about why they are there and why König had invited them, stating they should be at home instead. König intervenes, saying they belong there, which is why they are there. After saying this, he plays the flute, but Gretchen remains visibly angry. König then informs her about a parcel that has arrived. When Gretchen checks it, she discovers it contains her late mother's belongings left at their old house. Shocked, Gretchen asks why her mother's belongings are there, to which her father, Louis, reveals that he had sold the house. Hearing this, Gretchen becomes furious, punches her father, and locks herself in her room. Overcome with emotion, she listened to old voice messages from her mother. Later, Gretchen comes downstairs and finds König, but her family is absent. When she asks about them, König explains that they had gone to the hospital because Alma was experiencing frequent seizures. König offers Gretchen a chance to escape, suggesting she leave a note and flee. He assures her that he will retrieve some money from her house and drop her off at a nearby station. Gretchen agrees, and König takes her to her house. There she sees Eric, who has taken Henry hostage. This confuses Gretchen, and König explains that Henry had been discharged from the case but continued to be involved, prompting Eric to detain him. Eric intends to take him to the police station. Gretchen doesn't pay much attention to this, as Eric was legally justified. König then takes Gretchen to his pool house, where a tree is present. Realizing König's sinister intentions, Gretchen tries to resist, but he sprays her face with a sedative, causing her to collapse. König locks her in a room and begins speaking to her through a speaker. When Gretchen asks what he sprayed on her, König reveals that pheromones alter human behavior, causing them to act strangely or mimic animalistic tendencies. Here, König discloses the truth, unveiling the film's mystery. He explains the existence of a unique species that is different from humans. These ancient creatures, which König has been nurturing, possess remarkable abilities, such as trapping others in a time loop and rendering them helpless. He further reveals that the dead woman he previously mentioned was one of these creatures. He also confirms that Alma, Gretchen's sister, is one of them, which explains her strange behavior. These creatures propagate by implanting their eggs into human women. If the woman becomes pregnant, the creature's fetus absorbs the human fetus. Alma had undergone the same process. The human mother then gives birth to these creatures and raises them as her own, similar to how cuckoo birds lay their eggs in other birds' nests. As these creatures grow older, their inherent traits start manifesting. As the creatures mature, they begin exhibiting their unique behaviors. Once they are fully developed, König captures and controls them. He has discovered a way to keep them in check by playing a specific sound on his flute due to his extensive research. This revelation also validates the complaints of Gretchen's parents about her music, as it causes Alma discomfort. Most importantly, König had imprisoned Gretchen, intending to implant eggs in her as well. He summons a creature that approaches Gretchen, which turns out to be the same girl from the film's beginning who had fled into the forest. König begins strangling Gretchen as part of the egg implantation process, which cannot be completed otherwise. At that moment, Henry arrives, shoots König, and saves Gretchen. Henry also kills the creature attempting to implant eggs in her. The two then leave the area. Later we see Alma at the hospital, where Beth's condition suddenly deteriorates. Beth is taken to Lewis's house, where Alma is also present. It is revealed that Dr. Bonomo was involved in this process, and likely did something to help Beth complete the procedure with Alma. Meanwhile, Henry and Gretchen discover that Lewis and Beth had previously visited this place for their honeymoon, during which eggs were implanted in Gretchen's mother. It becomes clear that bringing them to the resort was part of a larger plan. Henry and Gretchen proceed further and find Alma lying on a bed. Henry discloses that the same experiments were conducted on his wife, leading to her death. Not all experiments were successful. Many had failed. Determined to eliminate these creatures, Henry begins his mission. On the other hand, König, now frustrated, shoots and kills Dr. Bonomo and another doctor with a shotgun, intending to end everything quickly. He then takes the gun and approaches Alma. However, Gretchen believes he wants to harm Alma and intervenes to save her sister, showing that she has developed an emotional bond with her. As Henry tries to pull Gretchen back, she stabs him with her butterfly knife to protect Alma, causing Henry to fall. Perhaps Gretchen shouldn't have done this, as Henry only tried to save her. Now, Gretchen tries to rescue her sister Alma and take her away, but the same hooded woman appears. It is revealed that the hooded woman is Alma's biological mother, who had implanted an egg into Beth and had now returned to take her daughter back to the forest. At that moment, the hooded woman lets out a terrifying scream, causing Alma to push Gretchen away and run off. Gretchen follows her and hides behind a stack of shelves filled with documents. However, the hooded woman finds her way there and searches for Gretchen. Meanwhile, Henry arrives and begins searching for Alma to kill her. He knocks over the shelves and sees Alma running away. He chases her, but König suddenly appears, and the two exchange gunfire. Amid the chaos, Alma escapes. The hooded woman eventually finds Gretchen, but Gretchen uses her knife to slit the woman's throat, killing Alma's biological mother. Afterward, Gretchen moves forward to see Alma. She reaches Alma's room, where König and Henry are fighting. Gretchen informs König that she has killed the hooded woman. Gretchen communicates with Alma, expressing her love and desire to accept her as her sister. Alma approaches Gretchen and hugs her, forming a bond between them. Although Alma might belong to a different species, Gretchen develops strong feelings for her, and Alma seemingly reciprocates. Gretchen asks Henry for help, and he assists them while protecting them from König. König doesn't try to harm them, because Alma is significant to him. Moreover, the hooded woman was already dead, marking another failed experiment, and König still needed Alma for his plans. Alma covers Gretchen's ears and emits a powerful sound that severely affects Henry and König. Amid this commotion, Gretchen and Alma manage to escape. Later, we see Henry and König shoot each other, ultimately killing themselves. Outside, Ed arrives, seemingly in love with Gretchen. Otherwise, why would she come for them? Ed helps Gretchen and Alma into her car and successfully flees together. With this, the movie Cuckoo comes to an end. If you enjoyed this detailed explanation, please like the video, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe.